What's up, guys? Welcome to Geometry with Mr. G. This is the quarter 3, 9 weeks exam review. This is the one for the on level. I'm going to make another one for our pre-AP review as well. So, as you can see, I've already started by writing down all the formulas for 1 through 4 here, kind of get a head start. Let's look at number 1 here. This is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Across from 30, if we look at our formula over here, across from 30 is x, so this is x. Across from 60 is x radical 3. So across from this 60, I'm going to call this x radical 3. And across from 90 is 2x. So across from this 90, I'm going to put 2x. The side they give us is this side here. So I know that 14 equals x. Okay, that's where I put my equal sign. That means anywhere you see an x, you're going to replace it with the number 14. So up here, this will be 2 times 14, which equals 28 for that side, so the x is 28. And then down here, right, you take the 14, plug it into x, you're going to get 14 radical 3 for the y. 14 radical 3. So there's how you do number 1. Let's look at number 2. Again, across from 45 is, if you look over here at the formula, across from 45 is x, so I'm going to call this x. Across from 45 is x, so I'm going to call this x. Right, across from 45 here, x. And across from 90, if you look at the formula, across from 90 is x radical 2. So across from 90, this will be x radical 2. Well, it gives us this side here, so we know that x equals 10, which means this side is 10. And this side is 10 radical 2. So x is 10 and y is 10 radical 2. All right, number 3. Same process. So again, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Across from 30 is x. So I'm going to call this side x. Across from 60 is x radical 3. So I'm going to call this side x radical 3. And across from 90 is 2x. So I'm going to call this side 2x. This time, our equal sign is going to go here. That's the number they give us. So we have 20 equals x radical 3. Now to get the x by itself, you're going to divide both sides by the radical 3. Whatever done one side, do to the other, so you get radical 3. And we end up getting x equals 11.55. Which means so this side here is 11.55. And this side up here would be 2 times 11.55, which gives us 23.1. So 23.1 for the y side and 11.55 for the x side. I know it says to leave your answers in simplest radical form, but again, for the sake of time, I'm going to put these in decimals. You can always take the answer choices, put those in a calculator, and see which ones give you those answers. So looking at number 4, we've got across from 45 is x, right? Across from 45 is x. Across from the other 45 is x. So across from this 45, we'll call this x. Across from 90 is x radical 2. So across from this 90, this will be x radical 2. So our equal sign will go here. We have 7 equals x radical 2. The x is not by itself, so we need to divide both sides by radical 2. Whatever you do on one side, you do it to the other. And that gives us 7 divided by radical 2. When it's about 4.9. Round to the first decimal here, why not? So this side is 4.9, and this side here is also 4.9. So 4.9 and 4.9. All right, so looking at number 5. Number 5 gives us 2 sides. Here at the top, it does say that these are all right triangles. So I'm going to go ahead and have my box in here for a right angle. It gives us 2 sides of the right triangle. We're looking for the third. So anytime you're given 2 sides and you're looking for a third, you should be thinking c squared equals a squared plus b squared, Pythagorean theorem. So with Pythagorean theorem, Again, across from the 90-degree angle is always the biggest side of the right triangle. So this will be my C. And then A and B don't matter. I'll just call 12A and I'll call my 16B. Go ahead and plug it in. We get x squared equals 12 squared plus 16 squared. Put that into the calculator. You should get x squared equals, well, 12 squared plus 16 squared is 400. And then the last step is to take the square root of both sides. And the square root of 400 is 20. So x equals 20. Awesome. Let's look at the last problem here. Or sorry, last problem on the first page. The perimeter of a square is 24 meters. So I'm actually going to start by drawing a square. We know that a square has all four equal sides. We also know that it has four right angles, right? So right angle, right angle, right angle, and right angle. It says that the perimeter is 24. So if the perimeter is 24, how do I figure out what just one side of the square is? Well, you know that all sides are congruent. All sides are equal in a square. So if we do 24 divided by 4, we get 6. So this side is 6. This side is 6. 6. 6. Now the problem is saying find the length of a diagonal. Length of the diagonal, right? So let me draw a diagonal. Cool. And let's go ahead and find how long that diagonal is. Now you could do Pythagorean theorem, right? You could do 6 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared and find that missing side. But we could also do 45, 45, 90 here, which is what I'm going to do. The diagonal splits this angle in half, so that's a 45-degree angle. That's a 45-degree angle, and of course this one up here is 90. So if I look at my formula, right, for 45, 45, 90, I went ahead and added the formula here for us. So if we look at the formula, we've got, again, across from 45 is x, so this is my x. Across from 45 is x, so this side is also x, which means we know that x is 6, right? X equals 6. And across from the 90 is x radical 2. So across from this 90, which is our diagonal, right? That's what we're looking for is the diagonal. That's x radical 2. Well, x was 6, right? So take the 6, plug it in. You should get 6 radical 2. So the answer is 6 radical 2 for the length of the diagonal. So, number 7, it says a firefighter is trying to rescue a kitten in a 15-foot tree. So we got a 15-foot tree. He says he places the foot of the ladder. I'm going to circle or box in the word foot. That's a key word. The foot of the ladder is 15 radical 3 feet away from the tree. And the question is asking how long is the ladder? All right, cool. So if I go ahead and draw, we're going to draw a right triangle. All right, that represents the tree, the cat up in the tree, which is 15 feet, straight up and down. We've got our hypotenuse. And we've got, let me go ahead and make this a little bit here, a little bit long, shorter. There we go. There we go. There's my right angle. It says the foot, right? This is the key word here. When you think of foot, hopefully you think of like bottom, right? Our feet are below us, the bottom. So this is where the 15 radical 3 will go, the bottom of the right triangle. And another thing you can think of is think of like what it's asking for right here. How long is the ladder? So we know that the ladder is the leaning side, the hypotenuse in this case. So that's our x. That's what we're looking for. So we have this shape. We have two sides of a right triangle. With two sides of a right triangle, we can again use Pythagorean theorem to find the third. So I'm gonna do it that way. We should do this is our. Go ahead and write our formula. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. So x is our c, right? Because that's across from the hypotenuse, so that's the biggest side. This is our a. This is our b. Let's plug it in. We get x squared equals 15 squared plus, and in parentheses we've got 15 radical 3, all of that squared. Just like that. You put this into the calculator. Exactly as you see it, you're going to get x squared equals 900. Don't forget to, last step, to get rid of the square, we're going to square root both sides. Square root should get x equals 30. And 30 feet is the length of that ladder. So there's number 7. Number 8 through 11, these 4 problems are going to be using trig. So remember, that's our SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, and tangent. For each problem, I will be writing SOHCAHTOA. And let's look at number 8 real quick. So looking at number 8, we're looking for this side x here, right? Looking for this side right here. We have a 32-degree angle. I'm going to use that as the reference angle. And step 1 to these problems is labeling. So you got to figure out the reference angle before we can label. Across from the 90-degree angle is always our hypotenuse. Right? That's the biggest side of the triangle, the hypotenuse. What I tell my classes is the side that is not touching our angle, the side not touching our angle is our opposite side. Right, you see how this side is across from the 32-degree angle. It's not touching the 32-degree angle. That means it's opposite of that angle. And then the side that is touching the 32-degree angle is our adjacent side. So which 2 sides are we going to use here? Because we've got to choose our trig function. Well, we're looking for x, so we have to use h. And then the only other side we have info for is the 10, right? We know nothing about the adjacent side. So we have to use h and we have to use o. So if we're using o and h, this is going to be a sine problem, right? Because cosine uses a and h and tangent uses o and a. But we're not using a in this problem. So sine will be our trig function. So equation will look something like sine. Don't forget the reference angle, right? The 32 degrees is always attached to the trig function. So sine 32 equals, and the formula for sine is right here. That's why I write it like this. Gives you the formula. It's O over H. So O was 10, so it's going to be 10 over H, which was x. There's the equation. And now we're just going to solve for x. Remember, this is the trick here. If x is on the bottom, right? Or if you want to think of it as the numbers on the top, x is on the bottom, the x and the sine 32 will switch places. So it'll look something like this. X equals 10 on top, sine 32 on the bottom. And when you put that into the calculator, make sure your calculator's in degree mode, you should get, so we have the value of x equals 18.87. I'm rounding to 2 decimal places since it does say to the 100th place. That's number 8. So moving on to number 9. Same process. Let's just do this a little bit faster. We've got our reference angle is the 56-degree angle. Therefore, this side, which is not touching our angle, is our opposite side. Across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. And this side is our adjacent side. Step 1 done. Let's go ahead and choose our trig function. Again, I'm looking for x, right? If I'm looking for x, that means I have to use O. Right? If I'm using O, then I know it's not cosine. And the only other side we have info for is the 12. So we're using O and we're using A. This is a tangent problem. So the equation is going to be tan 56, right? Always include the reference angle, equals. Formula is O over A. So we've got O is x, so x over 12. Now when the number is in the bottom, the trick is just to take that number and simply move it to the front of the equation as so. And you're going to type 12, tan, 56 into your calculator. And when you do that, the answer is x equals 17.79. That is how long that side is. Okay, let's move on to number 10. This time you'll see for 10 and 11, these two that we're about to do, the difference in these two is that we're looking for angles. The last 2 problems we solved for missing sides. These 2 problems we are now solving for missing angles. Same process. The only thing you got to remember is when we're dealing with angles, we must use the second key on our calculators, right? We got to press the second key first when we're looking for angles. So let's go ahead and do this. Again, this is the angle we're looking for, so that's going to be our reference angle. So the side not touching our reference angle is our opposite side. The side that's across on the right angle is our hypotenuse. And this side is our adjacent. So you got H, A, and O. Step 2, let's choose our trig function. It becomes a lot easier because, again, we only have two sides, right? We have the 26 and we have the 10. So we're going to use the O and the H. So this is a sine problem. So the equation is going to be sine of the reference angle. Well, the reference angle, right? The reference angle right here was just x. So sine x equals, and the formula for sine is O over H. So O is 10 over H, which is 26. And from here, we type this into the calculator. So I'm going to say it one time, just make sure you understand how to do this. You're going to type second sine, and then put your fraction, 10 divided by 26, and then you hit enter. Upon doing that, your answer is 22.62 degrees. That's the measure of that missing angle x. Last one. Look at this one right here. We're going to start by using this as our reference angle, since that's the angle we're looking for. Again, this is the side that's not touching our reference angle, so that's our O. The side across on the right angle is our hypotenuse. And this last side that is touching our reference angle is the adjacent side. Let's go ahead and choose our trig function. We have the 50 and we have the 32. So we're going to use O and we're going to use A. O and A will be tangent. So we're going to set that up. It's going to look like tan x, right? The reference angle goes here, equals, the formula for tangent is O over A. So we're going to have O, which is 50 over 32. So in the calculator, you'll click the second button, tangent, and then enter in your fraction 50 divided by 32 and click enter. Upon doing that, your answer is 57.38 degrees. And there is your 8 through 11. Now, number 12 is still SOHCAHTOA, still trig, but it's a word problem, so it's a little bit different. Let's read this together. It says, from a boat on the lake, so if I draw a boat, little boat here, on the lake, the angle of elevation, so I'm looking at the word elevation, you should be thinking up, looking up when you think of the word elevation. The angle of elevation to the top of the cliff is 24 degrees. So you're on a boat in some lake, right? Here's your lake. The boat from the lake. Here's the cliff, right? See the cliff goes straight up and down. Here's your water or your ground, if you want to think of it that way. Right angle. And this is your cliff up here, right? So it says the angle of elevation, so the angle that's going up, right, from the boat, so going up, just like this, right, that is 24 degrees. It says if the base of the cliff, base is a keyword, base of the keyword, right? Base, you shouldn't think of base, you should be thinking of bottom. So the base of the cliff is 747 feet from the boat. So this is 747 down here. How high is the cliff? So you can see when it says how high is the cliff, we're looking for the height, right? Looking for the height, which is represented by this side that goes straight up and down. So that's where I'm going to put the X. That's the side that I'm looking for. All right. So we've got our picture drawn. Now we got our picture drawn. We can go ahead and start solving. So I'm going to start by going SOHCAHTOA. Let's choose our trig function. If the 24 is my reference angle, then this side would be my O. This side would be my adjacent, and this side is my hypotenuse, right? H, A, and O. Well, we're looking for X, which means we have to use O. And then the only other side we have is the 747, which means we're going to use A. So if we're using O and A, then this will be a tangent problem. So you're going to have tan reference angle. The reference angle is 24, so tangent 24 equals, the formula for tangent is O over A. So X over 747. Remember from earlier, told you the trick here. If the number's in the bottom, simply move it to the front over here. In the calculator, you should type 747 tan 24, and you will get that x equals 333 feet. It does say round to the nearest whole number, which is why I got 333. All right, so looking on this page now, number 13 says list all possible trig equations to solve for x and y. So let's start with x. Starting with x, I'm going to put this as my reference angle. Right, if I'm looking for x, I'm going to mark that as my reference angle, which means my 9 would be my opposite side, the 12 would be the adjacent side, and 15 is going to be my hypotenuse. Just for sake of making this easy, let's go ahead and write so, ka, toa. And I want all three possible equations for x. So for example, let's start with sine. Sine of angle x equals, well, the formula for sine is O over h. So in this case, it'd be 9 over 15. I want the cosine of angle x. So the formula for cosine is A over h, which in this case would be 12 over 15. 12 over 15, right? And then I want the tangent of angle x. Well, tangent of x equals, and the formula for tangent is O over A, so it'd be 9 over 12. Now, if you put all of these into the calculator, you would remember you would click the second key first, put these all into your calculator, and you would get the same answer for all three of these. Now, let's do the same thing, but let's do it for y. And I'm going to change colors here for a reason. I'm going to use red. So this is my reference. If I'm doing it for y, this is now my reference angle, which means now the 12 is my opposite side, and the 9 is my adjacent side, and the 15 will remain as my hypotenuse. Right, so we're going to use the red for y here. So let's do, again, sine of y. So sine is O over h. Looking at the red, that's going to be 12 over 15. Let's look at cosine of y. Looking at the red again, cosine is A over h, so it's going to be 9 over 15. Let's look at tangent of angle y. And again, we're still in the red here, right? Because we're using y as our reference angle, looking at y. So looking at the red, tangent is O over A, so that'd be 12 over 9. And again, all three of those equations, you press the second key first, put it in your calculator, you'll get the same answer for y on all three of those. Awesome. So we're moving on to number 14. This is kind of getting into some of the old stuff from earlier in the 9 weeks. It says triangle ABD has median AC. Median's a key word. When you see median, you should be thinking middle. Right? Middle or midpoint. So C is a midpoint. If C is a midpoint, you know that DC is congruent to BC. Those two parts are equal, right? If C is in the middle. So it says in the problem right here, BC is 4x plus 3. So I'm going to put 4x plus 3 right here. And DC is 2x plus 11. So I'm going to put 2x plus 11 right here. Find BC. Right? So once we find x, remember that we need to go back and plug this in. We know that these two parts are equal. I'll call this part 1. Call this part 2. We're going to do part equals part. The two parts are equal, right? So 2x plus 11 equals 4x plus 3. Just draw my line. And let's do some algebra. So minus 2x from both sides. Left with 11 equals 2x plus 3. Subtract 3 from both sides. You're left with 8 equals 2x. Divide by 2 on both sides. Divide by 2. You get x equals 4. Most kids will choose 4 as the answer and they will get it wrong. Again, guys, it does say to find BC. See what I'm highlighting over here? So we're not done. You need to take this 4 and plug it in. Plug it into BC. So what is that going to look like? Well, that's going to be 4 times 4 plus 3. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 3. All right, equals 16 plus 3, which equals 16 plus 3 is 19. There's your answer for the length of BC. Number 15. Let's look at number 15 now. Go ahead and erase this stuff that's in the way here. So we've got line segment MO is an altitude. So it says MO is an altitude. That's a key word here, altitude. When you think of altitude, you should think of a couple things. Some kids will think of height, which is good. That's a good word. Height is a good word for altitude. You should really be thinking, the most important thing here is really you should be thinking 90-degree angle. When you think of altitude, you should be thinking of 90-degree angles. So MO is our altitude, which means this is a 90-degree angle, and this here is also a 90-degree angle. I want to find the measure of angle OMP. OMP. For those of you who are still uncomfortable with reading angles, you start with the first letter, right? Go to the second letter, then the third letter. So start with O, go to M, go to P, just like that. You ask yourself, look at the two lines, look at the two sides we just traced. Where do those two sides meet? They meet over here. So that right there is my angle that I'm looking for. I'm looking for that angle. So how do we do this? Well, a lot of kids don't notice this, but you actually don't even need this triangle anymore. This triangle does nothing for you. Let's look at just this triangle right here. Right? Just look at this triangle here to the side. We know that all the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees, right? I'm looking at this triangle here. All three angles have to add up to 180. I have the 90 and I have 55. Add those together, you get 145. So to find the remaining angle, we're going to take 180 and subtract 145, leaving us with 35 degrees. There's the measure of that missing angle, OMP. All right, looking at number 16. It says draw the following shapes. So let's go ahead and draw these shapes out. Quadrilateral is a shape with 4 sides, so 4-sided shape. Pentagon has 5 sides. Looks something like this. It's not beautiful, but it's 5-sided. Hexagon has 6 sides. 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 sides. And an octagon has 8 sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Something like that. Right. I'm going to go ahead and fix this ugly side here for that pentagon. So it looks boom. Boom. Cool. And there's number 16 done. Let's look at number 17. All right. You can start to see these are some questions from the quadrilateral test, right? It says quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram. Right, we're looking for x, right? So let's find x. And it gives us that ABCD is a parallelogram. Well, look at the side it gives us. It gives us AB, and it gives us DC. That's the top and bottom. We should already know that the top and the bottom side of a parallelogram are actually congruent. So if I call this part 1 and I call this part 2, we're going to actually use part equals part to solve for x. So that's going to look like 5x minus 8 equals 2x plus 13. Go ahead and draw my line. I'm going to do minus 2x first. Minus 2x. So we're going to get 3x minus 8 equals 13. Go ahead and add 8 to both sides. Plus 8. So we get 3x equals 21, because 13 plus 8 is 21. And then last but not least, divide both sides by 3. By 3. We're going to get x equals 7. Cool. Moving on to number 18, last problem. All right, here's the last problem. It says, which of the following equations can be, right, so which ones can be used to find the length of JA? So looking at JA right here. And you'll see in their answer choices, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're either using 62-degree angle or they're using the 28-degree angle for our reference angle. So the way I'm going to do this problem is I'm actually going to just write out all three equations for, let's start with the 62-degree angle first, okay? If I'm using the 62-degree angle, which I'm going to use red for this case, this will be my opposite. This is adjacent. This will be hypotenuse. All right. And the only sides we have here in this case, right, we have the A and we have the H. Right? We don't know anything about the opposite side here, so we can't use the opposite side if we use the 62-degree angle. We know nothing about the opposite side in this case. We have to use the adjacent side because that's where X is. And we're going to use the hypotenuse because that is the side they give us, which is 12. So if I use A and H in that case, right, if I look at TOA, A and H would be cosine. So that would be cosine of 62 equals, and the formula for cosine is A over H. So X over 12. That actually matches with this one. Cosine 62 equals X over 12. So if you look at your answer choices, you know A is wrong because we know that 3 works, right? 3 is an answer. We know that C and D are wrong as well. So it's either B or E. And at this point, we have a pretty good idea that the answer is going to be B because we pretty much know that it can't be all 6 of them. But let's just go ahead and check and see here. What if I use the other angle as my reference angle? So if I use the 28 as my reference angle, then my O and my A are going to change, right? So again, this is my O now. We're looking at blue. This is my A, and this is my H. So if I'm using 28 as my reference angle, I'm looking for X, so I have to use the O, and then I have to use H because it doesn't give us anything for the adjacent side. Again, we're looking at the blue letters this time, okay? Doesn't give me anything for the adjacent side. It only gives me the opposite and hypotenuse, which means that would be, well, so TOA, O and H is sine. So setting that up, that would be sine of 28, because we used 28 this time, equals. The formula for sine is O over H. So looking at the blue, our O was X. And again, looking at the blue, our H is 12. But the other formula that can work here is sine 28 equals X over 12, which is this number 2 here. So we confirmed that B looks like a good answer. And as a matter of fact, given that we don't know anything about this side here, right? There's no information for this side. There is no other way we can do these problems other than using those 2 formulas. So B is indeed the correct answer. That's the end of the review. Remember, guys, if you have any questions or if you need any help on any of this, please go see any of us in tutoring before your 9 weeks test. Good luck.